Behind every successful endeavor in life is a relationship built on trust. Welcome to The Trust Doctor, restoring trust and enriching significant relationships. A podcast focused on helping you nurture healthy relationships. Join thought leader and world-renowned expert on relationship and empowerment coaching, Dr. Patty Ann, and her special guests every week for insightful and meaningful conversations filled with great takeaways that will help you build healthier business partnerships and happier romantic relationships. Are you ready to restore trust and enrich the significant relationships in your life? The Trust Doctor, Dr. Patty Ann, is in.
Welcome to today's podcast episode of The Trust Doctor, restoring trust and enriching significant relationships. And we have an amazing, incredible guest for you today. I really cannot wait to get started. But before we do, since I know you're going to love this interview and this podcast, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe to the podcast. So our guest today is this incredible man. I am not even going to read his bio because when I give you his name, after you listen to this podcast or watch it, you can read it yourself. But let me just tell you that this man is passionate, and I mean passionate with a capital P, about helping you conquer your fears. He is passionate about helping you create success in your life because he truly, truly has spent many years of his life feeling crippled by his own fear and feeling crippled by feeling his unworthiness and feeling bullied by people because he wasn't good enough, strong enough, big enough, smart enough, rich enough, anything enough. And he is here today to tell you that you, in fact, are enough. So buckle up because Mark Drager is about to take us for a ride. Welcome, Mark.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you. That is one of the greatest, words of affirmation's my love language. So thank you for building me up so much. I'm happy to be here.
You can cut, paste it, and take it with you. So take me on the road with you anytime you want.
That's my new ringtone.
I do not mind being in the company of someone like you that is so passionate about helping people. So let me stop talking and please share your journey at whatever point you think will be most helpful to people, because I know that, look, people say this crap all the time. You really mean it.
Well, thank you. I think starting my journey, gosh, when I was quite young, I grew up in a. By
the way, you're not that old yet. How old are you now?
I'm turning 39 next month, so I'm in my late 30s. I've heard it said that you always feel old because you haven't yet gotten any older. Like this is as old as I've ever been. So trust me when I say 38 feels old. When I'm 50, I'm sure it'll feel old. When I'm 60 or 70, the same thing. We've never gotten past the point we are now, and we can't even imagine what that looks like. So
perfect. Yeah. And I'm just grateful that you did not ask me my age, because I think it's still true. You're not supposed to ask a woman their age. So we'll go back to you in your youth.
Well, and there's a few different chapters, but doesn't life work the way that when you reflect back on it, it's more of the same? And so I grew up in a really amazing household, and then my mom remarried to an alcoholic, angry stepfather with mental health issues, and he was dealing with his own stuff. And so I then grew up in this pressure cooker environment. I move out when I'm 16. I meet my wife, my future wife, at 17. We're married at 22. We have our first daughter.
Now, where are you living? Where are you located at the time?
Yeah, so I grew up just outside of Toronto, Canada. So
okay.
I'm Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I grew up. It was, you know what? If we want to spend a bit of time on family of origin, because so much of where we come from, so much of the relationships and watching the dynamics of how you think grown-ups, right? They got to figure it out. This is how you're supposed to live. We carry that
Joke's
with
on
us.
us, right?
Well, yeah, I got 4 kids. My oldest is 15. I'm pretty honest with them when I tell them I don't have this figured out yet. But
No, we have no clue. We're just trying to get along here. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, in terms of growing up, I grew up in a suburb of Toronto in an upper middle class family with an amazing mom. I grew up with my aunt. So it was my mom, my aunt, and my sister. And life was, up to the age of 7, life was pretty awesome. It was pretty rocking. We would go down to Florida for a few weeks every winter. We would spend summers at my grandparents' cottage, like for the whole summer. And it was just like, we'd go to camp and we do all this stuff. Then my mom remarries and suddenly my aunt is no longer.
Hang on 1 second though. Hang on before you fast forward. So you said you had like a idyllic childhood until your mom got remarried. There must have been some rockiness in the divorce. Did your dad pass away?
My parents split up. My parents split up.
Is it okay? Right? Like that was that very, very difficult? Did they do it as adults or what?
Yeah, the week I was born, my dad was going through his own kind of midlife crisis. But the week I was born, my dad left. And so I never
were born. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
And so I never grew up in a home where it was my mom and dad. But all credit to my mom. They stayed friends. Somehow, through it all, they stayed friends. So guess what? Christmas Day, my dad's with us on Christmas Day. He's at our place celebrating with us. Awesome. Easter, Thanksgiving. And they're still friends all these years later. I mean, they got divorced in 1983. And all of these years later, they maintained a relationship and stayed friends. And so I would go to my dad's. That was hard. It was hard going to my dad's. I missed my mom a lot. But looking back, I'm trying to reflect on, what were those traumatic points? But up until the age of 7, I was the youngest kid in a really great family. I had cousins to play with. I had extended family. I wasn't so good at school and figuring that out, but I mean, it was a pretty rocking childhood.
Well, I think, I think what you said is, and this is, I love what you just said, because, your parents split when before you could remember, that you knew nothing else. So that was your life. And your parents actually gave you an incredible gift of being adults in the divorce process, right? Because it's never about, it's never about the money until it's about the money. It's never about the kids until the kids become a pawn in the power play. So kudos to both of them. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. And it was, looking back, it's really remarkable. Now, I hit an age in my life when my dad left in his early 30s because his dad died in his early 30s. And my dad left and my sister was 2. I was a newborn. And there was a time when my oldest daughter was 2 and then we had a son. And I'm standing, in my late 20s, I'm standing in front of my wife's in the hospital bed, in front of my wife holding our newborn son. And it hits me. This is the moment my dad decided to leave. And I had to work on trying to understand that. And I had to work on trying to talk to him about it. And honestly, we do have a pretty distant relationship. And part of that is, now that I'm grown up, so to speak, now that I'm a father, a husband, now that I'm a man, I struggle to understand why he made the decisions he made and why he left. And I'm not looking for an explanation anymore or forgiveness or anything, but this is why I say you can pick any moment in life and it's more of kind of the same, because we see these things echoing through the generations or decisions that were made. And so I grew up, yes, my dad and mom were friends, which was amazing. I was the youngest child, which as a youngest child is pretty good. You think that the world is being kind of laid out for you and everything kind of is easier for you. And
honestly, sometimes the adults aren't paying attention anymore because they're tired. So you get away with stuff.
Yep. Yes. And then a lot changed really, really quickly. My mom met her future husband, my stepfather, and within a year they were married. My dad remarried the same year. Suddenly I'm now the youngest of step siblings on both sides. My stepfather has he had mania, so he had the manic side of bipolar without the depression side. And so he would go through these 3, 4, 5, 6 week cycles of being extremely manic, not medicating and refusing to medicate, and also just a very angry kind of person. And so from the age of kind of 7, my aunt is now gone.
So hang on a second, Mark. Let me just clarify for the
Yeah.
listeners, because I'm familiar with manic depression. But when you said mania, people sometimes, and correct me if this isn't your experience, they think of high up, manic, like happy, happy, happy. But the mania really references the level of activity, go, 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 go kind of thing, right?
Sleeping 1 or 2 hours per night,
right?
Making erratic purchasing decisions,
right? Financial
deciding,
ruin, right?
Yeah, I can remember in the early 90s it was decided that they would start a church, and not a Christian church, like a brand new faith. Like let's let's start a new thing, and we are all founders of this brand new thing and this new way of thinking. So some just deciding that at 11 o'clock at night on my mom's birthday, it's snowing and that the driveway is going to ice over. So I'm out there as a little boy and the whole family's out there shoveling the driveway and trying to chip the ice away because it's the most important thing to focus on. So a lot of
it's psychotic. It's crazy. And it goes.
Yeah, you could say that. I wouldn't say that, but yeah. Is that your clinical definition of it?
Actually, yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Because you're out of touch with reality, right? If it's not real, we're all neurotic, right? But when you're out of touch with reality, that's psychosis. But my point is the way you described it, if people think it goes, 1 minute you're up, 1 minute you're down. No, the cycles last for weeks or months, right?
Weeks. And anyway, typically around vacation, typically around a major move or a major life event. So, and then everything changed. So from the age of 8 to basically 15, we left my childhood home and moved out to the country. So I went from being in the city to being in the country. My mom got incredibly sick and ended up in the hospital for 4 or 5 weeks with gangrene, with an infection, and had to have her leg reconstructed and almost died. A few months later, my uncle was involved in a terrible car accident and had to go through all kinds of electroshock therapy and mental health issues himself. My grandfather had a heart condition. Like, only upon spending some time with a therapist did I realize, hey, my mom was remarried and they started a second family. So I started having step sibling or half brothers who came along. And so it was this period of being 11, 12, 13 with a lot of change and a lot of I don't even know how to, just very, very, very turbulent time with major things coming my way. And upon reflection, realizing that I didn't have someone who helped me process it. I didn't have that empathetic witness. I didn't have that person who can help me work through, okay, this is what's happening and this is how to feel about it. This is what to think, and whether it's your fault or not your fault or any of that kind of stuff.
Well, it's not even telling you what to feel about it, but it's not allowing you to feel whatever it is you're feeling, because what you just described is when your foundation is rocked, you're not on steady ground at all. So you am I allowed to, what is, you don't even know what a feeling is to talk about, right? So,
and it was only quite recently, maybe in the last 3 or 4 years, that I even realized that any of this stuff mattered, that it actually shaped me at my core, that it was still affecting me decades later, that the way that I took feedback, or my need to be a perfectionist, or the pressure I would place on myself, that these were all remnants of these earlier years. Because the story I was telling myself was, at 16, I moved out because I felt I was ready to move out. But it's really because I had to get out of that house.
mm-hmm.
And then I met my wife, and we started dating, and within 5 years we're married. So we're married very young. She's 21, mm-hmm. I'm 22. We have my daughter at 23. I start my
Why so young?
Why
did you get married so young, Mark?
Because I even the other day I was joking with my wife. I already had my midlife crisis 3 years ago. So it's like I'm just ahead of schedule. And that's the story I told myself. We're mature. We're ready for what's next. We feel like we're ready for it. And so every step along the way, I was just kind of like 5 or 10 years ahead of most of my peers. And as I got older, that stretched out. But, the majority of my friends are in their early 50s, even though I'm in my 30s, because we're at the similar life stage. And
so it sounds like the right question would have been, why not get married? You're
Well,
right. I
now
said,
that I look
why not?
back,
Yeah.
we were
Oh.
incredibly foolish. And I even joke with my in-laws, and our family friends we're still in touch with. I don't know why they thought this was a good idea. I don't know why they were so happy for us or celebrating us. I don't know why they stood at our wedding and clapped. I would have been like, "Are you guys bananas? You're so young. Why are you rushing into all of this stuff?" But at the time, we felt ready.
Well, you can't, if they would have told you differently, would it have mattered?
That's a great question. Probably not. Probably not. And you're right. What can you say to someone in that situation? But so really though, my wife, she reminded me again the other day that we've spent way more of our lives together than apart. We've been together for almost 22 years. I'm 38, so we've spent well over half of our lives together. And I know that these are conversations about relationships, and what more important relationship can any entrepreneur, any business person, any leader have than the person that hopefully you're going to spend your life with, you're going to share your life with, you're going to work towards similar dreams and similar visions, but also, they're going to challenge you and they're going to help turn you into a better version of yourself along the way.
Tell me how to help us understand how you worked through that. Your child is born. You're holding, it was your son, did you say?
Yeah, my first son, Jonah. Yeah.
Your first son. And it hits you. Wow. This is when my dad left.
Yeah.
Take us through that journey, if you don't mind.
Well, there's a story my mom always told, which was that my sister, 2 years older than me, Cheryl, my sister would always wait at the screen door every day for dad to get home, kind of thing. And so I can just picture, again, I'm too little, but I could just picture this 20-month-old, 22-month-old, 24-month-old every day waiting at the screen door for dad to get home. And the reason why this kind of stuck with me is she mentioned that for the weeks following him leaving, she would wait every single day for him to get home. And then, it's not that he took off, but their marriage was dissolving. And so he went to live somewhere else. So he just wasn't coming home. And he didn't feel like he was in a position to care for a 2-year-old or even a newborn baby on weekends or supervised or whatever it was. So that, as a dad, is just like, I can just look at my oldest daughter, Rachel, at that age and just think, okay, she's standing there at the door every day waiting for me to get home. And then suddenly one day I don't show up. And that's because of a decision I made, not because of illness, not because of death, not because of anything out of my control. That's a decision I made. And then for me to look at my son, Jonah, that I'm holding as this newborn baby and think this was me, it crystallized and helped me visualize what he walked away from. He walked away from me. He walked away from my sister. He walked away from my mom. And now that I'm older, I understand again that life is messy and people do all kinds of weird things for all kinds of weird reasons. And I can work to understand it. But at the time, it made me really angry because I thought, I'm not going to do this. And possibly, the success of our marriage or myself as a father, how involved I want to be, I could say thank you. I could say thank you, Dad, for, doing that and making me angry or making me upset or making me feel hurt. So that way I'll work a little bit harder to be there for my kids. Maybe this is the greatest gift ever, but at the time, it just really painted a picture for me for this is the moment that you decided to leave. This is what you decided to walk away from. And I struggle to respect that decision.
So I think what you're saying is you can be thankful to your dad because he told you exactly what you don't want to do.
In this one area, 100%.
Yeah, showed you. So if you want to look at the upside, that's absolutely a gift. Although when you're a child, I'm not so sure you can be quite that gracious.
No, and I don't think I think that would be a false expectation to place on a child. But no, I mean you can't be that gracious. And when you're angry, you can't perhaps be that gracious. But
right.
It's later upon reflection. I mean, part of what this childhood raised was not only do I or am I working with, not only have I been given really bad anxiety, And this feeling of needing to show up and perform. And you started off your intro by saying enough, like I really struggle to feel enough, and I'm working on that now, but also very cynical, very sarcastic. And I even used to think that made me really good at my job, because if you could be really cynical, really sarcastic, and really hard on things, if something passes that really tough test, ooh, it better be good. And that's what I would tell myself. But I realize, and what I work towards now is more than just gratitude and more than just reframing these situations, really working to try and connect the dots to understand that the hard times, the hardship, the challenges, the things that I didn't ask for have served me. I'm not a victim. These things didn't just happen to me, but there was a reason behind it. And whether I can see it or not, I have to have faith to believe that at a certain point, I will always be able to look back on anything that happens to me. This is what I really want to believe, that anything that happens to me at a certain point with enough perspective and distance, I'll be able to connect the dots for why it really served me.
That's great. So let me I just a couple of things. There's so many different places I could go with this. So when you talked about, having the anger, the sarcasm, and the cynicism, behind all of that, or overarching all of that, is anger. That's an angry statement, right? So anger can fuel us, but when it consumes us, it's not a productive emotion, right? It can fuel us to a point. It's actually a little bit more complicated than what I just said, but you know that, right? And then when you talked about, you can become the victim. And I said, well, you can be the victim or you can be a victor. It's your choice, right? We're having this conversation, I don't know, we in the middle, the end, who the heck knows what's going on with COVID, right? But everybody's been dealing with the same situation on a person, right? And everyone has a choice. When life gives you lemon, you can make lemonade, whatever that means. So here you are, saddled with this anxiety that your situation brought to you, right? Because it's not even that the rug was pulled out from under you. There was no rug. So there was no ground floor to ground you, right? Everything just seemed to be in turmoil. And so then you become anxious, and then fear dominates, right? And fear, we know, is a future emotion. And yet, when your relationships are built on fear, are built on anger, they're not creating the type of relationships that speak to success. And when I coach with the most very successful clients, right, there's that fear of, am I good enough? It just may show up a little bit more polished in some than in others, right? And you have a sense for that. Like it's almost like an intuition. And to what you said earlier, we now know with intuition, we actually think from neuroscience, and I don't know enough about this, but I'm learning more, that our intuition really speaks to our individual history of where we're from, our people, our culture. It's really quite interesting, right? So you are so tapped into the ability to overcome fear, overcome anxiety, to be victorious. So share with us how you do that. You do that in your personal life with 4 children. You do that with your clients. You do that so successfully. You sat in the first row of a Tony Robbins event with Evan Carmichael. I mean, people need to get this wisdom from you.
Well, part of it, I mean, there's a few things. Anything that serves you will also be the thing that holds you back. And I honestly believe that our greatest strengths are our greatest blind spots. They are our greatest weaknesses. And so I say this all as a precursor, as a caveat for the fact that I am not even halfway through this journey yet. But originally, the success came from the fear of failure. When I started my company at 23 years old, I decided to start my firm the week my daughter was born. My wife was at home. We're both 23. She's at home with no income. And I quit my $45,000 a year job to start my creative agency. And I did it because I thought that, hey, if I do this for one company, if I did it for just 10, we're going to make so much money. It's amazing. I could charge. And it was so hard in 2006 to start this media agency off of like $7,000 and some hopes and some dreams and a few friends who are going to quote unquote give me business. And
everybody's going to give you business till you go into business.
yeah, exactly. Actually, because 6 months in, we were on the verge of bankruptcy, and we had worked through the line of credit that I borrowed from my mom. We'd worked through all of our cash on hand. Again, my wife had no income. I quit my job, and so really the first few years was just fighting the feeling that I don't want to embarrass myself and fail in front of all these people who saw me step out on the ledge.
But hang on one second, though. Let me just go back. Can you tell me what your wife said when you said, "Hey, new mom, I'm going to quit my job and start a company"?
I convinced her, I guess, in the way that, she reminded me of this. We talked a little bit before this recording. She reminded me that I don't really ask her about things. I kind of tell her things. And if I don't get a really strong allergic reaction or resistance, then I take that as a go ahead. And
that can be dangerous. Just saying. Go ahead.
Well, but I've asked my wife, why do you let me do these things? Why do you? And she's like, I trust you. And I know you're not going to let me down. And I think you're really smart, which again is both like, oh, great. Let's
said the magic word.
Yeah. Let's feed into how smart I am. And you trust me. And this is great. But then there's the pressure. There's the tremendous fear of like letting her down. So at first it was just, I cannot. We were doing so little. We were scraping to get by. Our first year, we only earned $18,000 household income. We were below the poverty line. The government forced us onto social assistance because we were two parents at home, with a child, and they said, you can't live in the city on this income. And so it was so hard for the first few years. So I just worked incredible amounts of hours. I worked really, 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 really hard, knew that I was sacrificing my health. I knew that I was building up my stress. I knew I was missing the first few years of my kids growing up. Also, that way I could give them something in my mind. I could give them something. But really it was, I just don't want to fail in front of people. And then we started getting successful. Around year 4, 5, 6, we start growing. We start scaling. I can grow the team. We start making money. And then it becomes like, okay, I don't want to lose this thing that I have. Right? How many of us entrepreneurs and business people get quote unquote success, and now we move from an aggressive place of trying to earn and win and grow to a place of I don't want to sacrifice or lose the things that I have.
Very different mindset shift.
Huge shift. And then I found myself in my early 30s in a position where I had eliminated all risk for my life, and I was having a conversation.
So you're playing it safe.
100%.
Probably first time in your life, if I'm understanding you correctly.
Yeah, I felt incredibly comfortable and safe. I was 30 or 31 around then. And I had a client who we become friends. He flew up from Chicago and we're having coffee together. And he's telling me about this new business venture. And I'm like, I play devil's advocate a lot. And it gets me in trouble because I start debating with people about causes that I don't even have an emotional stake in. But he's trying to tell me about this business, and I'm, again, cynical and skeptical, trying to poke holes in it. I think I'm helping him here, and I'm playing devil's advocate.
If you're not helping him, you sure as hell having fun.
Yeah, no, I'm not helping him because he got super pissed off. It was the first time where someone across from me got really visibly angry, and it caught me off guard because I'm like, Andy, man, we're just talking. We're just having this conversation. I'm just trying to help poke holes in stuff.
You're poking what you just described, if I may, being devil's advocate. And I love playing devil's advocate. Like, I'll take a position for something. I don't even know what it means. I just know you're supposed to feel one way. I'm like, no, I feel the other way. I'm amazed at how many times people don't even ask me why. They just are reactive to it. Because if they ask me why, I'd look like an idiot because I don't even know what I'm talking about. Right? But what you're describing is you are taking pleasure in poking the bear. Poke. So that's why honestly, you got this.
Yeah, honestly, what it was we hit what I realized upon reflection. I had a few days afterwards because he got super, super angry. The conversation turned really quick, and later I apologized, and it was never the same. Our relationship was never the same after that. It completely destroyed the entire friendship, the entire relationship on this one conversation. And I realized that he was coming at it from an entrepreneurial point of view, which is, I have this idea. I'm really excited. I believe in it. I have investors who are going to invest money. And if it doesn't go well, they lose their money. That's what investing is. And my moral position was, because I'm running this bootstrap company and I've never taken money from anyone, that it's like, you're willing to risk investors' money on something that you are not really very sure about. And I was like, and I think the line that may have got him was something like, I think I said something like, that's stealing or something. Or so.
Well, you were questioning his integrity for sure.
Yeah. Well, it was, so learning lesson number one, I learned so much about that. But in that conversation, he challenged me, and I said, listen, like, go prove me wrong. But here's where I'm at. I had paid off my mortgage. So I had zero debt. I had a business that was worth a lot, that was earning me money. I had the freedom to be able to leave my company whenever I wanted. I had a great wife and great kids. And I was proud. I was saying at like 31 or 32, like, look at how I've been able to set up my life. And he looked at it as like, how could you not be challenging yourself? How could you not be taking on a risk? How could you have given up so early? And I didn't even realize until much, much later how right he was. And it took me a few years after that of questioning, oh, is this it? Because I hadn't been challenging myself, and I had paid everything off, and we were living comfortably, and that was kind of the third period. So there's these chapters of life. The first was,
hang on though, Mark. What you just said though is, and I think this is important, especially for entrepreneurs listening, right? No growth happens in the comfort. It's all in the discomfort. You just got too comfortable being comfortable.
Yes.
And when you do that, you take zero risk. Now,
Yes.
It can be steady as she goes, but you sure as hell aren't going to grow.
Well, and not only will you not grow, the very things that used to excite you no longer excite you. The things that would wake you up in the morning, the things that would fire you up, the things that would help you create a better vision or rally the troops or anything. It's like, we use the word growth, right? But what does this really mean? What this really means is you end up finding yourself at a place where you dread going into the very thing that you built, the company that you built, or someone calls you up with a new opportunity that used to excite you, and you're not even excited by the opportunity. And not only that, if you make mistakes like me, I didn't even replace myself. So I watched this like slow boredom and mediocrity take over. And I wasn't even sharp enough at the time. Going back, I would do this differently. I didn't even replace myself with someone who had that spirit, who had that energy, who could have filled that gap so I could move on to something else. I just kind of stayed still, and it was terrible.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you were starting to say the third phase.
Yeah, well, that really was the third phase. So the first was, I have to make this work because I can't fail and waste all my time. The second was, hey, this is working. Awesome. I don't want to lose something. And then the third phase was, what do I have? Like, is this it? Is this it with my health? I was 70 pounds heavier than I am now. Is this?
What?
Yeah, I've lost 70 pounds in my life. But
you have to tell us about that. So did you gain 70 pounds as you were growing the company? Correlate your weight gain to the success of your business. I want to hear that.
Yeah, it was just
if there is a correlation.
And it was just, if you gain a few pounds, 5 pounds a year, eventually you find yourself going from larges to extra larges, and then you hit a point where you're going to outgrow your extra larges, and you go, I can't do this anymore. So at 30, I decided I'm going to get healthy. And for about 6 months, I got really healthy and lost weight. And then over the next year or two, put it back on. And then I was like, I got to get healthy again. And it was really when I was 35 or 36, on the second or third time of being uncomfortably overweight. I was going to have to go into size 40 pants. I was going to go from extra larges to whatever's beyond that. And my wife got heavier over time. When we met, we were young, right? So when we were young, I was 180 pounds, and which is about what I am now. And she was, a size 4, size 6, because we're young. Then by our mid 30s, we find ourselves, I'm much, much heavier. And, she's like a size 14 and having to move from 14 to plus size. And if that's where you're at, there's no judgment on my side. It's just, we hit a point where we knew this wasn't us. And yet we didn't know how to change. And we kind of felt like, again, this is it. We started everything young. We've done everything young. We've accomplished some stuff. When you're a high achiever and you look at your peers or the people in your life and you already know that you're doing more than them, you feel kind of guilty for wanting more, right? Like we wanted more. We wanted more health. We wanted more wealth. We wanted better relationships. We have huge dreams. We have huge aspirations. And yet our social circle, we were already the high achievers amongst them. Mm-hmm. So how can we then turn to these people and say like, hey, I know you look at what we have and think it's awesome. We think it's nothing. Let's go get some more. And so that really kind of, all of that stuff kept us really stuck. And it was really hard.
So are you saying, so hang on a sec, from that, so two things. One is you started to make the change because you became uncomfortable with where you were, right? Yeah. Which is what we're saying, where the growth happens. But it sounds like, unless I misheard you, that with the trappings of success, right? It sounds like you and your wife felt isolated from others.
That's an interesting point. I mean, we still feel that way, and we have for quite some time, because I don't really make friends or hold on to friendships very well. I work with people, and I care. See, even I'm saying this so clinically, like I care about people. Let me convince you how much I care. But I'm more of an acts of service guy. So it's like, if you're doing something for me, if I'm doing something for you, if we're working beside each other, then we can build a relationship. But like, I'm not a quality time person. So just hanging out, just talking, just connecting, I mean, it's really hard for me. And then my wife has always struggled on her own side with just the sense of belonging. I mean, that's her biggest challenge, is the feeling like she belongs. And so, it's hard when we move to a new city. It's very hard to make friends and relationships. So we joined a church, and we started making friends, and we started connecting with people.
A real church.
A real church. Yeah. Not one that my stepfather decided to
You're
put
breaking
together.
the ice for. Okay.
But, and we found a really great church community, one that helped us plug in with people. I have my own struggles with Christianity and the church, but I could kind of bite my tongue. Again, playing devil's advocate is not a great position to be in.
Well, I'm not so sure, from what I'm hearing, that you joined the church for the religious
for the right reasons.
No, look, hey, don't hitch your wagon to me if you think you're going to get into heaven with that one at all. It's a conversation for a whole other day. My joke is, pack light if you're going with me, because it's going to be warm. But it sounds like, though, and again, I am not judging at all, but it sounds like you joined the church. And I think a lot of people join any religious organization for the camaraderie and the social aspect, the relationship aspect, not necessarily the religious aspect. No?
Yeah. And you mentioned.
And that's cool too, right?
Well, you mentioned that I got to sit in the front row of Tony Robbins' event with Evan Carmichael and how cool that was. That there was a day. So that was 2018. We went there. It was November 7th, 8th, and 9th, 2018. And there was a woman.
You're tying this back to the church, though, right?
Yeah, I'm tying this back to church.
Okay, well, make sure we don't get off of that. Okay.
Yeah, no, we're not going off topic here. I'm going to tie this back to the church. So there's me, there's Evan, and then beside Evan is this lovely, lovely woman who I find out is from Ireland, who is a Christian singer in Ireland. And she's there, and my goodness, she is a believer. And we're getting to know each other, and we're getting to work through things. And for whatever reason, she feels compelled on the last day to tell me, Mark, you know God here up in your head, but you don't know God here in your heart. And I was like, okay, thanks for that challenging thing that I didn't ask for.
Discharged, yeah.
And I start to walk away and think about it more and more. And what I realized, she saw something. She's right. And it started the deconstruction of Christianity for me, because I realized I was a cultural Christian. I liked the culture. I liked the media. I liked what I hoped it could do, but it wasn't the right, I wasn't really plugged in properly, and nor was my wife. But getting back to your question about friends and relationships and what have you, because of us moving to a new town, because of us plugging into a church, we found ourselves making relationships with people who are amazing, awesome, lovely people, but they weren't a few steps ahead of us. They weren't challenging us. And again, it ties into this guilt that my wife and I had of, we had so much, how could we ask for more or want more? We're already achieving so much, how could we have our eyes set even higher than that? The easiest way to explain this is we have 4 kids. We love our kids, but any parent knows sometimes it's just like, you don't want to be a parent, or your kids are being—
I have 4 kids, and if people don't tell you that there's days you would give them away, either they're on serious drugs or they're lying.
Right. And we had these amazing friends who worked for 12 years to have kids and never could conceive.
Yeah.
And I felt so guilty for even feeling like I should, there are these people who want this thing. And so all of that stuff, that's all on me. It's not on any of them, but it's all on me of how I internalized it and my place and where I want to be.
Sounds like you felt like you weren't allowed to be happy. That's how I'm hearing it.
And that's probably true, because when I was a kid, I can remember getting yelled at for laughing and having fun. So there you go. You just unlocked something in me. Because
you just said that you and your wife feel guilty or badly, whatever the term was, because I'm hearing what you're saying, what you're not saying, right? And because I'm trying to listen for what the audience is hearing too. You said, how could we want more? But I never once heard you say, Mark, you wanted more money, or you wanted more children, or you wanted more stuff.
We did.
I don't feel that from you at all. Like there's nothing about the consumerism more that you want. So I was thinking, as I'm listening to you, saying, what the hell is he talking about? So
yeah, it is those material things though. Like we do want more. We want to live in a different place that costs a lot more, in a different house that costs a lot more. And I have expectations of what I'll give my kids, and I want to pay for all of their post-secondary school education if that's what they choose to do. And we want to have a home in a warm area that we can travel to, and we want to have freedom and take time off, and all those things that entrepreneurs want. We want nice things. We just, the reason why
hang on a second. Forget comparing yourself to what others may want or have. Why aren't you allowed to want for more and for better? That's how society evolves. Or we'd be eaten by the saber-toothed tiger if we didn't want to learn how to kill them.
Yeah, and the most recent work that I've done over the last 2 years has really helped me take ownership over, it's okay to know what you want. It's okay to want what you want, especially if you believe in your heart that you're doing it for the right reasons.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to try and pursue those things and fail or succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And while, you may nod along and the listeners might go like, this is easy stuff. Deep down, this was all stuff that was holding me back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so really it's like, even me telling people I want to do this, how often do we as leaders or entrepreneurs, are we kind of, we're okay maybe having a goal in our head. We maybe struggle a little bit more to write it down, but if we're trained, we'll write it down. And if we're really trained, we'll start talking about it with people, because we know that's how we're going to manifest it and make it happen. But until you can get to a place where you're comfortable doing that, most people will not even admit to themselves what they want. Or if they do want it, they'll judge, why do I want that when there's something else I should be doing? And
well, that's also a way to protect yourself if you don't get it, right? So that, I want it, but not really, so you don't manifest it. This part of the conversation to me is crystal clear as to why you are so successful with your clients, because you just express what probably the majority of them experience as well. So they know that you are authentic and that you've been there, done that. So continue. Thank you so much for that, for being transparent. That's awesome.
Well, I'm not sure where you want to take the conversation, because we could take it wherever we want to go. But essentially, what I've been able to do is look back at these challenging moments in my life. And I'm starting to train myself, I should say starting, to realize that these hard and these difficult and these scary things that I don't want to do, they will serve me if I do them and if I attack them, that it's okay to try and release some of the judgment that you place on yourself. And when you do that, you actually find yourself judging others less. And so that's actually where I've been working on trying to train myself, is I struggle not to judge myself all day, every day, because I'm in my head. So what I'm doing is working to stop judging others and be more understanding and try to be more empathetic towards them. Because if I can release my judgment of others, then I believe it'll be an easier path for me releasing the judgment for myself.
Of course. Of course.
Well, I'm not a trained doctor in any of this. So you're like, yeah, that's 101.
You're living it. You're living it. And honestly, I think it was a conversation or an interview I had with Evan Carmichael. And if it wasn't Evan, then forgive me if I'm attributing something to him, but we all know how brilliant he is, right? And humble. But I'm pretty sure he said, I force myself, where I insist that I do the things that I don't want to do, right? And that's what you just said. And again, it's a way of coming out of our comfort zone. So as you've evolved, right? And as you've allowed yourself to want more, because why not? It's just my response to you. Whose standards, whose life are you living, right? How have you kept in sync to make sure that you and your wife are on, growing together as you go apart, that kind of thing? How are you doing that? Because we know, especially for entrepreneurs, and I work with many entrepreneurial couples in business and many entrepreneurial couples because the challenges are different, right, in their marriages. So how have the two of you been able to navigate that?
Well, I'm very proud when I say this, and I hope that I look back in 10 years and think we're even so much better. We have a stronger relationship than we've ever had in our lives. Mm-hmm. Part of that is the maturity that comes from growing up and spending more time together than earlier ages. Part of that is the fact that our kids are no longer in diapers and we're getting good night's sleeps. Yeah. And, we can go out for date nights and we can reconnect. But the biggest part over the last 2 years, especially with the pandemic and with COVID, which is an amazing gift for me. I used to spend most of my time outside the home. I would get up, I would go to the gym, I would be in the office at 6 a.m. I would work until 5 or 6 p.m. I'd get home at 7. I'd see the kids for 20, 30 minutes and off they'd go to bed. And being forced to be at home not only forced me to spend more time parenting and gave me more time to parent, allowed us to be more of a partner with things. It also allowed me to actually kind of audit my wife and what I want to achieve and my progress. And it forced us all to spend more time together. And so a few things that we did that are just super tactical, but we found really helpful every single day, unless if she's working, because she's now in our new career and we're amazing with that. But unless she's working, every day we go for a 45-minute walk together.
Is she an entrepreneur as well, Mark?
No, she's actually a performer. So she's an actress and a singer, and she's a personal trainer. So she's gotten super fit as well, like me, and we've both gone all in on that. But unless she's working, we go for a 45-minute walk every day. I finish work now at 4 p.m. and then we go for a 45-minute walk, and helps us transition from the day to the evening time. And just whether we have something to talk about or not, just forcing us to spend time together is first really good. The second is because we've spent time together, and because I think, like most entrepreneurs, pattern recognition is kind of something that I'm good at. I think most entrepreneurs are really good at pattern recognition, seeing the same thing, trying something, realizing, oh, this is the reaction. Oh, let's tweak it. Let's change it. This keeps happening. Because we've had these high stress environments where every few months here in Canada, we go into a lockdown, and the first lockdown is traumatic, and then the second's not so bad, and then the third isn't so bad. But I could watch my wife react to these things. I could share with her my fears or my challenges on these walks. I could realize that she's someone who, even though she hasn't been in corporate, she hasn't been in entrepreneurship, she hasn't been in the career, I respect her opinion more today than ever before. And really, at some point, my wife kind of resented the fact that I could go out to work. She didn't say that, but it was there, that I could go out to work.
Stuck home with 4 kids, of course. Yep. You get to go to the bathroom by yourself. You get to eat a meal by yourself.
14 years she was at home with the kids before she started her second career. And so I always saw that as like, I can't do what I do and the kids can't do what they do without you, but that wasn't enough for her. And so all of these things, the reason why I think we have a stronger relationship than ever is I have been able to see how she reacts, and we can now deconstruct it, and we talk together. We strategize about this.
Mhm.
And I can see how I have this challenge up ahead, and I can bounce that off her. And again, we can deconstruct and strategize about it. And we can start to note these things that are happening. And Evan, you mentioned Evan Carmichael. Evan Carmichael is brilliant. I've been lucky enough to know him for 15 years.
Mhm.
I get to call him. I get to spend time with him. There used to be a time where I'd be listening to his videos, and my wife would be like, "Oh, I'm so tired of Evan's voice. Why are you you can talk to, why are you watching Evan's videos while doing the dishes?" And I'd be like, "Well, because he's, like the mindset stuff, and I'm trying to learn this stuff and everything." And so she was so resistant to it. And yet she saw some of the changes it's made in my life.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
she became a little more open and a little more open and a little more open. And over time, I won her over. And then she's a little competitive. So if I do something and see gains, she doesn't want to be left behind. And so through all of this time, we have been able to actually become stronger partners by one, me being much more open with her, me being in a position to challenge her challenging me, and us just working at this the way that you would work with any business partner where you're trying to build something. We're trying to build something here.
That's the exact point. And that's where I tell people when I'm working with business partners that aren't intimate partners, but business partners, there's many of the similar challenges that come from a marriage. And you just said it. You just hit the nail on the head that two things. One is when we don't have things we want in our life, in our relationship, in anything, if it's important to us, anything that's important to us, we prioritize. And how do we prioritize it? We put it on the calendar. We schedule it. And people say, well, I don't want to have to schedule date night. I don't want to have to schedule sex. I don't want to have to schedule, with my COO. Well, then it won't happen. There's a good chance it won't happen. So you did that. And then, of course, besides having those walks, which is the connection, which is the goal of all communication. So you schedule it, you prioritize it, evidence by scheduling it, and then you communicate by connecting first. So it doesn't matter what you're talking about. You don't even have to talk about anything like you said. You're just walking. And why are you just walking? Because you're connecting. It's actually it really is a great, it's the template for how you grow together and grow apart while staying together kind of thing, quite frankly. And I'm sure you do that with all your clients, right?
I wish I was as diligent with all of my clients. I mean, my clients I own a creative agency. And so
you don't think the hardest person on the planet to win over is your wife? Clients are easy. We're tough.
Possibly, the thing I still struggle with, because we talked about this being enough, like I still marvel at how or why my wife loves me the way she does, or how or why she finds me attractive, or the spark that we're able, if we go away for the weekend, the spark we're able to tap into. And part of that is, I think, probably insecurity. Part of that is that I just feel so fortunate enough. But like a great example, without getting too intimate, the other day we're laying in bed and she has her arm on my shoulder and I'm sitting there and we've been together 22 years and I'm thinking, her name's Jacqueline. I'm thinking, this is Jacqueline, like the Jacqueline, the one in high school that I used to marvel at, the one that when we were, young, the one that was standing across from me, and I could remember all of these life moments that we've shared. And yet I'm still amazed that this woman is here with me right now. And it's not always like that, but I work to try and have more of those moments. And having seen some like success with that, with my business partners or others, it's so easy to get caught up in the tasks in the day-to-day. I try to stop and take a step back and go, Evan Carmichael is my friend. On Christmas Day, I sent him a note just saying, Merry Christmas. I'm thinking of you and all this stuff, because I'm just like, I get to be friends with this person. And again, I don't know if that's healthy or not, but man, does it make me feel grateful for the people and the things that I have.
So it's so interesting what you're saying, because from learning about you, I think what you're not acknowledging is what you help your clients with, right? You help your clients see in themselves what they don't see in themselves. You give them the confidence that they can do it. They can overcome the fear, right? They can quiet the anxiety. They can be who they want to be. And you do that, I think, by allowing them to see themselves the way you see them. And that's the start of them then owning it. Well, you're looking at your relationship with your wife and with Evan through your eyes. You need to look at it from what she's thinking. I can't believe this guy's my husband. Like, I've known him since forever. I don't know your wife, but most teenage girls, it's not a pretty time in our lives, truth be told, right? No matter, even if you were the successful, beautiful beauty queen, you speak to them later on in life, there's a lot of, it's tough being a teenager, and it's tough being a teenage girl. You're thinking about Evans like, oh my gosh, why is he, friends with me? He's thinking, I can't believe I get to be friends with Mark.
Yes, I do play that game. I do recognize that that's what it is. And that is good advice. I need to do that more.
But it's not a game. It's right here that, all right, I'm going to read it. You, because more than anything, deep down, you want to help people like you build the most extraordinary and meaningful things possible. Yes. A business, a product, an experience, it doesn't matter. I love being part of the process, as small as it may be, that leads to the moment, drum roll please, when others look at what you've done and say, you did that. Drop the mic. It's amazing. You do it all the time, all day, every day.
Well, thank you. I will accept your compliment graciously. And it's you know what it is? It's closing the gap. And this is what I do tell people. We need to close the gap between how awesome we really are and either how we see ourselves or how the world sees us. Because either people come at it with an overinflated sense of self or an underinflated sense. Either you think your brand and your company and your positioning and your marketing is the greatest thing on earth and yet no one's buying, or you're really down on yourself because you just struggle to figure out how to figure it out. But the truth is, we are all absolutely awesome at something. And what we need to do is figure out how to close the gap between how awesome we really are and how we show up. And so the biggest question that I tend to ask myself these days is just, who do you need to be? Right? In this moment, right now, who do I need to be? Last night, I realized, hey, I'm getting ready for bed. I'm tired. I get up early. I'm tired. I hadn't even spoken to my 13-year-old son pretty much all day. Like, he came home from school and he's doing stuff and I'm busy and he's busy. And I realized, like, do I want to be the dad who goes, like, has a day go by where you don't even talk to your son who's in the same house as you just because you're tired? And it's like, I don't want to be that person. So I go downstairs, I connect with him. I ask him how his day is. He lights up. It just makes me feel like the greatest dad in the world for doing that one small thing. But whether it's your brand or your business, whether it's relationships at home or ventures you're trying to do, I think the greatest question we can ask ourselves is, who do you need to be?
Well, and you said it's a small thing, but you had to have the self-awareness and you had to have the want and the desire, because other people would have went through that same process. I'll talk to him tomorrow. It's not a big deal. He's playing his video games. And I, for one, can see the reason, one of many reasons, but probably a very big reason why you're so successful is because you're not anything, you don't propose to be anything you're not. I mean, this entire time we spoke, you were so vulnerable. You were so open. Like, at one point I thought you were going to say, stop asking me these questions, like cut the interview, edit, like none of your business. And you went with it, right? And people can relate to that because we're all struggling on the journey, not because there's anything wrong with us, but because it's called life. And I'm so grateful that there's someone like you that has such integrity when you're working with people trying to figure out their way. So, having said that, 2 more questions. Ready?
Let's go.
What's the one main thing in life that you've learned that you want everybody to know? One main thing.
That all the things that you think really matter don't really matter. And the things that matter the most are probably the things that you're not spending time on. And so if I break this down a little bit, all the things you're stressed out about are not the things that are going to go wrong. The thing that goes wrong is the thing you would have never seen coming. And if you can't see it coming, why are you stressing out about all these things? The thing that you're chasing and working so hard towards that you really want to achieve is amazing. It's great. Do that. Challenge yourself. But in 10 or 15 years, will just be like a line item, maybe on your bio, if it's really big enough. And all of the things that go wrong, huge things that go wrong in your life are terrible. But most of the things that go wrong for you are things where in 5 or 10 years, if I asked you about it, you probably wouldn't even remember. And so what I've worked towards is letting go of a lot of these things. Now that can lead to hopelessness, or to, if none of this matters, does anything matter? And if, of course, we know the answer is yes, things matter. You need to challenge yourself. You need to learn. You need to grow. You need to serve others. You need to build strong relationships. You need to create something that's lasting, because those are the things that matter most. Those are the things where on your deathbed, people say they want to die without regrets. But let's be really specific. They want to die knowing that they did what was right for them and for their loved ones, that they challenged themselves, that they pursued those passions, that they took those risks, that they fell flat on their face and it led to the most beautiful and amazing thing ever. They don't want to die having played it safe or living for someone else. That's what matters most.
Awesome. So I'm debating between two questions now to close this off with. All right, I'm gonna go with the one that I'm not sure is the best one, so I'm gonna go with it. Okay, I'm gonna take.
Oh, what a hedge! What a hedge!
I want a hedge. Yeah. Okay, if you could have the answer to one of the mysteries of the world, which one would it be and why?
Oh, you got to give me a moment here. If I had an answer to one of the mysteries of the world, I think I would want to. This is really putting myself out there now. I think I would want to understand God and religion in the afterlife. I say that because my biggest struggle as a Christian was somehow believing that Christianity was the way and everything else must be wrong. I can't live in that space. And whether there is an afterlife or there isn't something that I'm afraid of, but I would just want to understand greater than anything. I would want some kind of understanding or assurance just so I can know what truth really is. And this is why it's faith, and this is why it's a mystery, and this is why no one really knows. But I would love to know what the answer is for the higher power that may exist and what is waiting for us on the other side.
And you know what, Mark? I would love that answer too.
I think most of us would. I'd write a book.
I would love that. Well, it would let me know, pack light, don't pack light. And like you said, it's indicative of where you are at this stage in life. So I am glad I can ask more people that question. So where can people find out or learn more about you? Because I know they're going to be looking for you.
Well, thank you. The best place to go is go over to Instagram. You can find me at Mark Drager. And if you send me a DM, I get all of those directly. So just drop me a little note, ask me a question, whatever you'd like, or go over to YouTube and check out my podcast, the We Do Hard Things podcast over on YouTube.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. This was, I could go on and on and on. And that concludes today's episode of The Trust Doctor, Restoring Trust and Enriching Significant Relationships. And I know Mark did not disappoint. So make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Until next time.
Once again, we've concluded another great episode of The Trust Doctor with Dr. Patty Ann. Tune in next week for more insights and advice on how you can create, nurture, and sustain healthy relationships. To find out more about the podcast, visit drpattyann.com/podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, and share. Until next time.